Welcome everyone to our webinar on the next wave of disruptions in logistics. My name is Wika and
my name is Jochem.
And we will be the host for this webinar. We are proud to have three speakers, the great three speakers. Each speaker has a unique and different background, which will be very interesting to see. So yeah, we would like to introduce our first speaker, Miss Marike de Ruiter de Wild from the New Fork. Hello, Miss Marike.
Hello, good morning for me, good afternoon for you.
Yeah.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. It's wintry, it's sunny, it's almost, it's a good day. I'm looking forward to this webinar.
Yes, we're looking forward to hear from you too. So can you also explain like a little sneak peek about what you are going to talk about for today's webinar?
Sure. Yes, so we are a company based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And the Netherlands is known for agri-food production and trade. And we develop technology for the agri-food supply chains. And we are focusing on open public blockchain solutions that are gonna make our food supply chains and supply chains in general much more resilient and much more robust and fair for a better future. That's what we believe, and that's what we're gonna talk about.
Great, we can't wait for that. So thank you very much for the introduction. Next, we would like to introduce our second speaker, Mr. Sander van der Heijden. Hello, Mr. Sander. How are you?
Hello. Good afternoon. I'm fine. Hello from Singapore and not from Amsterdam.
Yeah, great. So can you please explain a little bit about yourself and also a little sneak peek about what are you going to talk about for today's webinar?
Yes, so I'm a founder and CEO of UNL. We created a universal digital global addressing and naming platform. I will be talking about why the tech giants like Amazon and Alibaba are better in logistics than the logistical companies and the reasoning behind that. So that's the topic that I will discuss.
Wow, great. Can't wait for that. Thank you very much for the introduction. Next, we would like to introduce our third speaker, Ms. Wuran from AI Robotics Technology. Hello, Ms. Wuran.
Hello, Wika. Hello, Johan. I know you guys are in Bali. Very nice place. And a good afternoon from Singapore. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you here today. My name is Wuran. I'm the CEO of AI Robotics Technology. We are a Singaporean deep tech company that has built vision-based perception technology for level 4 autonomous driving. Our customers are geofence premises. So we define geofence premises as any closed and controlled environment with clear traffic rules and repetitive driving tasks. This could include hospitals, warehouses, airports, logistics centers, and farms, etc. Where millions of mundane and repetitive driving tasks are done by humans today. So they suffer from manpower shortages and also high operational cost. And our technology is to release the human drivers from those tasks. And today, of course, I'm going to talk about how autonomous driving technology, especially level 4, is going to be the next wave of disruption in logistics. So back to you, Wika.
Wow, thank you very much, Ms. Wuran, for the introduction. Wow, it's very interesting to hear and to see what will be the next. So yeah, so next I will explain a little bit about our agendas. So each speakers will do a presentation of about 10 minutes. And after that, we will do a Q&A sessions for about 10 minutes. So as we go through the webinar, if the attendees have any questions, you can type in the chat box So after the webinar finishes, and then we will answer the questions in the after the Q&A in the Q&A session. Sorry. So yeah. So I would like to invite our first speaker, Miss Marieke de Ruiter de Wild, to start your presentation.
Okay, let me start this. Okay. So you all can see the screen, right? This, yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Switching from Google to Zoom to what have you. So the company is called The New Fork. I'm going to talk to you about what we call the open food chain, and it is about implementation of public blockchain solutions. I'm assuming some of you have heard about blockchain, and I'm assuming not all of you are aware to the detail of what it means. Do post your questions. We will answer them also later on in the chat. So I'm briefly going to take you through why it's important, how it's gonna, or how it looks like, broadly speaking, from a high level, of course, and what it is that we do then. So first of all, the why. The why for us as a company is that we want to have healthy food for a healthy planet. That is our purpose. And the way how we do that is that we make sustainable business bankable by mitigating ESG risks with blockchain. And that's the whole sentence. It basically means that by using technology, we make ESG risks more manageable, and ESG stands for environment, social, and governance risks. So broadly speaking, it is about sustainability risks. And if by using technology, you can make these risks more visible, you can make them also more manageable, and you become more bankable. So that is broadly for us why we are very strongly involved into the blockchain technology. Now, if you ask our clients, they say these 4 reasons. And in between brackets, I highlighted the technological aspect. What does that? What makes that happen for those who are interested in it? So first of all, it brings an indisputable administration. And for anybody who has lost something at some point in your life, if you can never lose your administration again, and if you have this immutable administration, that has a great business value. The second point is that with this technology and with many other technologies, you can automate the execution of business logic. So this is pretty much the sort of, if these conditions apply, then that happens. And in a blockchain environment, you can do that on a very safe, in a very safe and protected environment. And that's called smart contracting. Thirdly, you can integrate what we call, or what is called in general, programmable money. And I'm sure you've all heard about the Bitcoins and the cryptocurrencies. Basically, that is sort of digital money. It's programmable money. And in supply chains, in logistics, that is a very strong trade as well, where you can automate them, you can automate the settlements between actor A and B, and C and D, of course. And lastly, you have your data in your own control. The technology for that is wallets. So rather than having less control, because often sort of open public is a connotation associated with less control on your own data, you actually have more control on your own data. That is the why. That's the why of our customers. Now, what is it? If you scan this, if you take your phone and you scan this QR code, you get to a demo of our own, one of our demo products. I'm sure that the presentation will be shared, right? Will the presentation shared? I guess, huh? And otherwise, yeah, just scan the code and I will just put the code in the chat. That makes perhaps a lot of sense. This is the supply chain, how it works. So on a more, say, easier level, you have a supply chain, and each actor in the supply chain, you put your information to that blockchain, and you can also put claims to that blockchain. Claims on quality, claims on maybe volumes, claims on sustainability. And by putting that on the blockchain, any other party can always check and verify that. What is different about this solution is that it is very decentralized. So the way it is managed, it is governed, the governance protocol is 100% decentralized. So there is no one party that is in control, but the whole network of that technical solution is verifying and controlling, and that really establishes the trust. It has the highest level of security that you can have in a digital system. And basically, it timestamps the proofs of, in our case, batches and claims. So if you are in any logistical supply chain, the timestamping of what is happening in that logistical chain is what you can do very well with a blockchain. And we started off very simple, so you can scale it onto other areas, but also other more compounded products or batches. Now, we are developing this open source. So next to that, it is an open public blockchain. We develop it in an open source fashion. And we do that because we believe that if you use the global community for technological developments, you make better products and you go faster. You are more competitive and you can have a higher added value. We strongly focus on what we call autonomous onboarding. So in a decentralized world where the supply chain is not governed by, say, a retailer or a brand, but everybody contributes its own part, you want to have a component where every actor, including smallholders, including remote companies, can join the blockchain network on their own. We set the transaction cost at 0 because we believe that technology really needs to make things more efficient. So rather than adding a business model to it, you need to render efficiency and use the efficiency savings to pay for the technology. And we need to start rewarding sustainable practices. I think if you, if you see at the globe, at the world where we are, we really need to include sustainability in our end consumer price and in the pricing schedules in the supply chains. Now the final part is on the how. So just to we have two components basically, because for implementing a blockchain solution, we spin off new governance structures. So rather than us owning a solution, the solution is owned by a new setup organization. The reason why we believe this is an essential part is that if you start to deploy a solution that is owned by a retailer, again, with the example, then the adoption is never going to be the adoption that you want it to be. You want the solution to be of nobody and of everybody at the same time. So that's why we spin up new governance structures. So think of a new foundation, think of a new maybe company where the solution sits in that governance structure, in that organization. And then we as the new fork, but also with this open source, with this with the development community, we develop, maintain, and service the solution. We do that in 2 steps. So first, we start very small. We start very focused. We prefer to start with only 2 or 3 or 4 consortium of the willing members. So companies that believe in what we are set out to do. So we don't work with companies that we need to convince. We believe that if you want to innovate, you need to work with the innovators. And we focus at first on a very small functionality. So we keep it very simple, because you can talk about technology for a long time, but if it's not tangible, you don't get the results. So we rather start with something, then show how it works and show what it can do. And then in a second phase, what we call here the fuller chain, you get this new organization, you get more organizations, businesses onboarded, and you include other features, more complicated features. Now, from a governance perspective, it looks more or less like this. On the left, you see this foundation in which the application is managed. And then you have different supply chain parties who all operate their own, in blockchain terminology, you call that a node. So the computing power that participates in a network and that controls the solution. So everybody can participate in this fashion, and you can also, for example, have NGOs who can also check and control the validity of your system. Now, this is the last slide. I just wanted to sort of give you an insight on how we organize ourselves. So as a new fork, we have product owners and scrum masters, and I'm assuming we have a technical audience. That is what we have in-house in company, and we do the service layer. So we have people who pick up the phone if clients have questions on anything of that solution. And then for the development, we work with remote teams, like, for example, It's a Virus. So this is more or less how we are organized. And it is a bit of a high over fly through of our solution and our proposition. I have two birds flying around here, and I wasn't anticipating that they were so actively participating in the webinar as well. So I hope it's not been too disturbing. We need to have a bit of tropical in the Netherlands as well. But any question, put them in the chat. I'm super keen to answer your question. And for now, I think this is it.
Yeah. All right, Marika, thank you very much for your great presentation. So we actually have a few questions coming in via the chat and via the Q&A. One of them is, let me take a look. If you go to one of them is regarding your blockchain tech stack. What kind of stack did you use, and why did you use that?
Yeah, nice. I love those questions. So we're focused on open public blockchain. And the reason why we do that is it is the most secure and most decentralized technology. And agri-food supply chains are very long and very complex. So in order for this complexity to be able to work with a solution, it needs to be fully decentralized. That is our opinion and our experience. And we work with Komodo, which is a blockchain layer that works with what you call delayed proof, and that writes off to the Bitcoin blockchain.
Okay, yeah, more decentralized than Bitcoin. It's not going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, great. Thanks for your answer. So from the same person who asked that question is also the question, so how are participants in your ecosystem incentivized? And I think what she means is what is common in a blockchain system is that all the participants have some kind of incentive to contribute and then all work collectively in order to make the shared system a success.
Yeah, excellent question, because that is really the at the heart of everything, right? So what is the motivation of people to contribute? The key motivation is that they want to become visible in a supply chain. So they want to be able to indicate that their produce is a good product. And you have to remember that we are focusing on supply chains that want to show their consumers, their business relationships, that they have a good product that has a sustainable impact on the globe. So it is really to prove their sustainability and to prove the quality, because they're proud of their products.
Okay, so in the end, it's to make their company or their organization more bankable then.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. One more question from Rani. So what do you think is the biggest challenge to implement your system at the moment? Can you, for example, name a few of your
Yes.
partners? Maybe that would also...
Yes, sure, yeah. The biggest challenge is really the current governance structures of companies. So we work with corporates, so we work with the likes of Kraft Heinz, of retailers like Ahold Delhaize, of juice companies like Refresco. So we really work with the bigger companies in agri-food, and they are overall not very strongly focusing on innovation and on change. So, and definitely not on decentralizing in the end, it's about decentralizing power structures as well.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest challenge. It's really, it is, I would say, the limited capacity of humans in general to embrace technology and to venture into new structures of governance and new structures.
Yeah, I think in general, of course, that is the biggest challenge of a lot of blockchain projects, where what you do is in the benefit, it's in the benefit of society, but therefore not always in the benefit of individual companies, because they are in this competition with each other always by default. They cannot help it even if they want to.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also why we have this focus. So what you see in many supply chains, it's a war on margins, right? And in order to flip that race to the bottom and turn it into a race to the top, you need to be able to compete on other things than just margins. Yeah. And by making your proof immutable, traceable, and valuable, you can flip that direction.
Okay, thanks. So we have one question about why did you choose blockchain for your system? It came in early, so I think you already answered that question. Maybe you can just quickly rephrase.
Yeah. I mean, so we started about 4 years ago when blockchain matured in fintech, in finance. And at that time, I was running a software company where we digitized processes at farm level. And when I saw blockchain maturing, I really saw the strength of really data management, having very clear business models around data ownership and data management. And for agri-food, that is critical. So that was the real core motivation. And in the end, I mean, it is part of the new industrial revolution, call it the fourth, call it the fifth, whatever you want to call it, where we are decentralizing our management systems.
Yeah, so we can finally live up to the promises of the internet.
Definitely. And I really think we have a window of opportunity. Yeah? And maybe this is a call to action to everybody in this call or in the webinar. I think a window of opportunity is 5-year max. And I really think we need to grab it and, push these systems out there.
Yeah, I agree with that, with the time window, definitely. So last question, would it be hard to implement, or would it be possible to implement the software of the new fork in Asia?
No, we'd love to.
Yeah, I think it, your model would really fit in, especially in a country like Indonesia, where there's a lot of agriculture as well. Yeah,
you have a very strong competitive advantage on agriculture. And I think basically there are two winners of technologies like blockchain in an agri-food system, in an agri-food industry, and that's the consumer and the producer. And everything in the middle, we need to see how it turns out, because retailers might disappear. Yeah. Transportation might become much more efficient and hopefully much more mobile, as we're gonna listen later on from Wu. But the definite winners are producers and consumers, and I think Indonesia is a big producer.
Yeah, definitely. I would say it's a really good market. Let's try to look into that.
Yeah,
right.
Reach out to us. Yeah, great.
Well, I would like to thank you for your presentation and your answers on the questions. So I would like to give the microphone back to Vika.
Thank you, Johan. Thank you very much, Ms. Marika de Rutter. So yes, I will invite our second speakers, Mr. Sander van der Heijden, to start the presentation.
Yes, thank you. Blockchain always an interesting topic in nowadays, and absolutely the technology of the future to disrupt logistics. So yes, let me start my screen, sharing my screen.
Sure.
I have a slightly different topic. Hope everyone can see it. So I will be talking about, of course, also disruption in logistics, as it's the theme of this webinar, and also go into what we have been doing the past years and how we want to impact the supply chain. So in the last 20 years, you have seen that the big tech giants have been taking over global retail, and the well-known companies like Amazon and Alibaba, and they are leaving the brands, retailers, and logistical companies far behind. And why is that? What is the reason behind the retailers and logistical companies and the brands losing from these giants? Now, one of the reasons is that Amazon is a tech company. Amazon is not a retailer. Amazon is not a logistical company. Amazon is tech first. And they choose in the early days to sell books online. Why books? Because it was the most easiest product to sell and to experiment with online business. Let me move a little bit. Oh, wait. So why are they so good in what they do? Is that they own the data. They have the insights from the consumer behavior, but throughout the supply chain, they own the data. And because they own these insights, they can continuously optimize their supply chain from factory to doorstep. So ultimately forming an integrated supply chain. And that's what you need if you want to have that super ultimate optimized logistical system to bring packages from factory to your doorstep. But how can we help these brands and retailers and logistical companies become the next retail giants? They need to step out of their islands and their siloed thinking. And I think Marika already touched a little bit on this topic, where they need to collaborate, they need to exchange data, but before they can, and willing to do that, they need to have the comfort to exchange this data in a way that they don't lose the ownership. So what needs to happen is that we need to bridge that gap. They need to go from isolation to collaboration. They need to create a virtual integrated supply chain where they are willing to exchange this data and become the logistical providers themselves. So we envision that through tech and data, there is a need for an open infrastructure where we will be unlocking hyperlocal data and power these companies to collaborate, to match, of course, capacity and demand and planning, but also specifically last mile optimization, as last mile is consuming 60% of all logistical costs. That's the biggest challenge for the supply chain. There's a lot of complexity in the last mile, and this is one challenge, a problem that needs to be tackled. And of course, it needs to be a sustainable solution where we protect the climate and create more sustainable solutions regarding logistics. So Absolute transparency in the supply chain is needed to power this collaboration. Smart planning and routing and accessibility. But most important, and everyone knows that we need to reduce CO2, so less cars, more efficiency in the supply chain to come to this sustainable solution. But it starts with a smart address, connecting the dots to power smart logistics. UNL is a smart addressing platform that gives anyone and anywhere a unique universal smart address. The tools to give context and relevance between people, places, and machines. Unlocking the nearly unlimited potential of hyperlocal data. And this data marketplace is the way forward, and also utilizing blockchain to stimulate this collaboration within the supply chain. Activating data across the entire supply chain to realize this virtual integrated operation. But most important, reducing the miles and time to complete this last mile. This will have a major impact not only in cost savings, but also in reducing CO2. And of course, as everyone knows, that the whole world is working towards a truly autonomous future, especially in deliveries. Not only drones, but also robots in fulfilling that last mile. But the most important is you need to have an address to be participating and be included in this digital economy. Without an address, it's more difficult. It's a challenge to drop the package in front of your doorstep. So yeah, this was a short presentation about how these tech companies have a huge impact on the global supply chain, and how retailers, brands, and logistical companies need to collaborate to achieve this same excellence in operation. And I'm of course open for questions related to this topic.
All right, Xander, thank you very much for your presentation. So if I understand it correctly, you have developed like a 3D map layer on top of the world.
Yes, we within UNL, the initial idea was we were looking at the last mile, and we concluded that the current addressing systems, and we were only looking at it from a European perspective, street names and postcodes were not designed for digital economy, and where you need smart addressing that give more than only a location. It needs to have context. It needs to contain last mile and last meter information. It needs to be included into routing algorithms to optimize your supply chain. So we came to the conclusion or the vision that the world needs a global universal addressing and naming system to achieve this. And to realize what we envisioned, we created a grid of the world, dividing the world into cells. We do outdoor, indoor elevation, and we can interact with every cell that we defined, and we can individually program that so that you can create a smart supply chain.
Okay, yeah, I would definitely say you tackle an issue that is very, very common here in Indonesia, because addressing is not on a level that you would need it to be in order to have great deliveries, right? So you always need to know some tricks in order to actually get your package delivered at your house. The question for me is, what do you think of the What 3 Words initiatives?
Yes, so that's an interesting one. Of course, we are compared in essence. If you're talking about addressing, What 3 Words is also a solution, but very limited. So what they do is they define 3 by 3 cells, and they randomly generate 3 words for every cell. And that's it. And what we created is a whole DNS architecture where we do outdoor and we do indoor, we do elevation, and we make the self-programmable, but also searchable. So you can claim your address and you can link a domain name to that address, and that domain name you can share with the world, but you can also stack this additional information to this domain name, like how websites function in the internet. We're creating and powering the Internet of Places and creating these, digitizing the physical world into a digital one.
Okay, cool. How do you see technologies like augmented reality connect with your technology?
So, of course, it's an interesting evolution in the user interface and how to interact between the digital and the physical world. So we see augmented as absolutely one of the interfaces that we will support. We're already doing experiments with it, and especially our smart grid is an excellent way to place objects in specific locations and to interact with these 3D objects on those. So we're also thinking of creating a sort of Pokemon game on top of our infrastructure, where you can interact through augmented reality with digital objects in certain places.
Right. Would be a cool idea to get traction, of course. I would like to go to the questions from the Q&A. The first question is: so your platform relies a lot on data in order to become efficient for its users. How will you collect the first data sets in order to make sure that companies or private individuals will actually be able to use that data? And is there like a chicken and egg problem?
Absolutely, it was a chicken and egg, and this is also the reason why we partnered with one of the biggest mapping companies in the world that gives us access to their data. So that's the first answer.
Yeah, that fixes the problem, yeah.
That's the first answer. Then second, we partner with companies that have this data that we need. And this is also the reason that we are creating a data marketplace, so that we have a way for these companies to provide us with this data, but also with a way that they can monetize on that data. So in that way, that's sort of the second answer to this question. And third is that we engage with companies, merchants, and the end consumer to add these point of interest data on top of our infrastructure. And we are implementing ways to also incentivize this engagement. But it is, of course, both ways. It's a win-win-win for stakeholders in the supply chain. If the consumer participates at the last mile, last meter, and for the e-commerce fulfillment companies, it's a huge cost saving if they know where to drop the package and not searching for that location. To give you an example, UPS has done a case study where if they would eliminate 1 mile per year per driver, they would save 30 million in the US alone. So it's a huge impact on optimize that last mile in the supply chain.
Okay, so let's go to another question, pretty specific, about drone safety. How do you ensure the safety of drones, such as bad weather, being stolen, etc.? So that in the case when someone implements your system for example, drone delivery, would your system be capable of helping that?
So there is what we do from our technology, it's not, we can't solve everything, of course. This is something that is bounded to the hardware and the software in the drone itself. But what we can add onto that is an intelligent layer. So what you will see, like cars, when cars were invented, the governments started to create highways, regulated pathways where cars could drive from A to B. This is something that needs to happen from a regulatory perspective to allow drones to fly into in a certain flying zones. So what we can create is these virtual highways that drones need to follow. On top of that, we can embed our whole library of coordinates into a microchip so that drones can carry all those coordinates so that we can program these drones. On top of that, we created a sound wave protocol to communicate with these drones, to communicate and we can go up to 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter accuracy so that we can communicate to those drones where they need to land on. So that's sort of a summary what we can add to these drones.
And, following that, there's also another question about the maximum distance between drones. I think with your system, you can actually fly really close to each other and then still be safe, right?
Yes. So what you see also with planes communicate through radio frequencies. They exchange their coordinates with each other so that they don't bump into each other in the air. And the same thing you can create with drones.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. I really think you should also, after this webinar, have a chat with our next speaker, because you are in a industry and you share many similarities, or with both doing something completely different. And it's of course also my reason now to hand over the microphone to Rika again. Oh wait, I see one more question coming in. Sorry, question from Deutsche Bahn Digital Ventures. Would you be interested to hear a little bit about the? Okay, so Daniel Paz is interested in how you structured your funding.
That's a totally different topic, but we can do that in a separate conversation. I'm glad to answer that in a personal conversation.
I will bring you guys in contact with each other. I know Daniel as well, so I'll make sure that you guys will exchange email addresses.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. Xander, thank you very much for your presentation. I will now give the microphone to Vika again.
Thank you very much, Johan, and thank you very much, Mr. Sander, for the great presentation. So next, I would like to invite Ms. Wuran as the third speaker. Yes, Ms. Wuran, you can start your presentation already. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wika, and thank you, Zander, for the presentation. As you know, I work for a company called AI Robotics Technology. And in our company, we built vision-based perception technology for level 4 autonomous driving. We built this technology for geofence premises owners mainly because they suffer from manpower shortages and high operational cost daily. And usually the workers in those areas, they drive a vehicle on a defined and repetitive route. And we all know that it's not a fun job for any human beings to do. So this year, the pandemic has impacted almost all industries across the world. Some are devastated, like tourism, travel, and aviation, and some are accelerated, like online shopping, online education, automation, robotics. So as AI robotics, we are very fortunate to be in an accelerated industry. In the past months, we are laser focused on identifying customers' new pain points and providing them with solutions. As we weather the new normal of a world having to live with this COVID-19 and its repercussions for a long, long time to come. So before I talk about why autonomous technology is the next wave of disruption in logistics, I want to walk you through some of the basics about the technology. So how does an autonomous vehicle work? Very simply, it uses computer to drive a vehicle instead of the human drivers. So many companies are creating AVs. Why are we so unique? There are 4 things that stand out. Number 1, it is flexible with infrastructure. By that I mean we are not dependent on GNSS signals or network due to the edge computing capability that we have. And number two is it provides a higher safety performance thanks to the deterministic expert algos we have built. Number three, the driving data is auditable by regulators. And the last but not the least, we have secured third-party liabilities insurance partners to join us on this exciting journey. I want to clarify that we as a company, our solution is we do autonomous driving in a retrofitting model. That means we do not make any sensors or hardwares or cars. We simply hand-picked sensors, CPUs and GPUs, and retrofit them into the existing fleet of vehicles to enable our clients to have level 4 and above autonomous capabilities. So the autonomous technology will get there, there's no doubt about it. But why are there so many companies investing tens of billions of dollars into this field? And let me just share some slides with you. As you can see from the slide, there are at least 40 plus companies working on this technology. So why there is a race to be the first in autonomy, and why can't we just wait for somebody else to do it? I'd like to articulate two reasons. Number one, the autonomous technology is an operating system. And number two, the economic impact of level 4 and above autonomy is enormous. So autonomous technology is essentially like an operating system. So you can think about AVs as computers on wheels. That's what they are. They are computers with a big battery on wheels. And if you think about the computing history, Android, iOS, 2 survived. Mac and Windows also 2 survived. We probably have a third one, Linux, but because of the network effects, only 2 operating systems usually take 80% of the market. And that's exactly what's going to happen with autonomous technology. 2 things we have learned from the history of computing. The first one is no one is going to wait. Apple did not wait for anyone before they came out with iOS, and they launched iPhone to the market. And 2, only 2 companies are going to survive, maybe 3, but that's it. Anybody who wants to play in this game has to pay money to these 2 companies. And that is why everybody is investing so much. And you can see from the chart, not only vehicle manufacturers are investing like Audi, Ford, but also ride-hailing companies like Lyft, Didi, and Uber. By the way, Didi is the Chinese version of Uber. And also technology companies like Apple and Samsung. So another reason, another fundamental reason for this is the economic impact of level 4 autonomy. The convergence of electric vehicle, the autonomous driving technology, plus ride-hailing is going to be enormous. So let me just take a pause and remind all of you that vehicles or cars are still the second largest expenditure of the middle class for most countries. However, our utilization is only 4%. That means we park them for 96% of the time. And anyone knows that 4% of asset utilization is a disruption waiting to happen. The convergence of EV, AV, and ride-hailing is going to increase the driving time from 4% to 40%. And because of the lower maintenance cost of electric vehicles, the cost per mile of electric, autonomous, and ride-sharing transportation is a lot lower. As you can see from this chart, and I promise you, this is the only chart I have with numbers on it. The red dotted lines are the cost per mile of level 4 autonomous driving solutions at the bottom. And TASS stands for Transportation as a Service. And the solid blue line on top is the cost per mile of buying a new car. So level 4 autonomy TAS is going to be up to 8 times cheaper than the cost of owning a car. And on top of that, you can see in the middle, there is a blue dotted line. That is the cost per mile of the operating cost of an existing car. And that means level 4 TaaS is going to be up to 4 times cheaper than the operating cost of a car that you already own. So the decision is quite simple here, right? Do I want to spend $50,000 over 5 years to own a new car and paying for the operating cost, including fuel, maintenance, and parking? In other words, probably about $1,000 per month. Or do I want to spend $100 per month subscription for transportation as a service? That's a no-brainer, because every time there is a 10x cost saving, there is a disruption in history, every single time. So as a result, there are also other indirect implications coming from level 4 autonomy. Number one, the new car sales will definitely crash when the level 4 autonomy is approved. The reason is it simply doesn't make economic sense to buy new cars. And there will be $1 trillion disposal income increase in US alone. And another $1 trillion productivity increase by the time freed up from driving. And that means the biggest economic boost in our history. So in addition to that, because of the freed up parking space up to 80%, we'll have the first time to redesign and rebuild our cities. Do we want more green space? Check. Do we want more affordable housings? Check. And that is another multi-trillion-dollar boost to the construction. So among all of this, level 4 geofence are the most ripe for autonomous technology commercialization, just because of the limited variability in the environment, the eager users, and the regulations. And this varies from people movement, goods movement, and industrial vehicles. So finally, I want to leave you with one thought. Autonomous driving technology is no longer a science project. It is becoming a reality. It's not going to be a fancy high-tech working only in simulators. It will deliver real-life benefit to the society. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you, and back to you, Wika.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much, Rodan, for your insightful presentation on autonomous driving. There are a few questions coming in. One of them is, how far are you with your technology?
We have passed the stage of proof of concept, and that was about 3 years ago with Sentosa Golf Course. And following that, we had our first commercial contract with one of our clients, Marina Bay Sands, and they actually used our technology for a real life use case. So in terms of proving that the technology works and having a POC product and also proving that it makes economic sense, there's a value in the market. I think from all the hard work our team has done for the past 3 years, we have accomplished a good foundation to launch our product for the bigger market.
All right, thanks. What do you think of the comma.ai project?
Sorry, could you elaborate what is comma.ai project?
Yeah, it's also an interesting project, I think, when it comes to autonomous driving. So they, instead of, they made it really simple for people to collaborate with them in order to make sure that they collect the data needed to, for example, compete with Uber or other big corporations. And what they give back is an open source system for autonomous driving.
I think that's an excellent idea, because if you really look at the technology, even for the big giants, we are not building the technology in one single way. So you can see Tesla is building it purely on vision, and Waymo is betting on LiDAR. So this is the problem that is so huge for the reward. And I think it's an excellent idea to get the best talent in the world to solve this problem.
Yeah, all right, thanks. Let me check the other question. So this is a philosophical question. In case of an incident between two autonomous vehicles, who is responsible and how would you ensure this? It's a difficult one.
I never thought about this question, so thank you. And in this, usually the question is, if there is an accident between a human driver and a computer, who's the fault then?
Yeah.
So now the question has advanced to the level of, if there are two computers, then how do you decide who's the fault, right? For us, we know our technology very well, because I also know that people are trying different things. And when you really use deep learning, machine learning, deep neural network to make a decision, you can't possibly explain the rationale behind the decision, right? So for us, all the data, the driving data is auditable, and we bet on a deterministic approach much more than the DNN approach. So we have to really dig into the data and see what was the decision-making process done. And that is one of the advantage of the technology, the algo, the deck we have built, is we can check what exactly happened.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, then in the future, of course, you can have interesting dilemmas where if you are able to buy an expensive car, you might also have a more beneficial algorithm for to protect your life compared to a cheaper vehicle. So that can become really interesting, especially in cases when data is not shared.
Right, and level 4 and level 5 is only the higher level of automation, right? So before level 4 is from level 0 to level 3, and these are actually machine getting better, the computer getting better to assist human drivers. And this is a huge market also for the tech companies, the startup companies to work on. And I know some companies in China, they have a visual analysis system just for the drivers, and they could tell when the driver is looking at his or her phones, or they are driving with a big fatigue and they are not just simply suitable for driving. And these are smart solutions to really alert the drivers and make sure they're driving much more safely on the road.
All right, thanks. Another question, what are the challenges in developing your software, in developing this system?
The challenges, it was not easy, to be honest with all of you. And the challenges is always, we were lucky in retrospect because we get the top talent to work on this problem. And they have the right background, they understand safety, they understand automation, and they've been working in automation industries for 20 years. So selecting people and selecting right people to work on this challenge was the #1 thing that we did it right. And later on, I can tell you that there are so many times I am running the vehicle, testing it on site, and we just couldn't get the performance right until a point, months after months, and I was sitting in the basement one day in my tears and thinking it's never gonna happen, and I have to leave Singapore, go back to China, find another job, etc., etc. But finally, a magical moment happened, and that was truly magical. We tried and tried, and I still remember it was so late in the evening, around, I think, October for sure, and 9 or 10 o'clock p.m. And we said, do we want to try one more time? And I was with my CTO, only 2 of us were there, and we tried something new. And that time, the vehicle worked. And that was one of the most magical moments in my life. I get to experience not only the failures of technology development, but as well as the success. So I could not be more lucky to work with my proud team.
Yeah, I can really imagine that it must be a super happy moment, of course, to finally see a big part of your dream coming into reality. That is,
That's right.
otherwise, you don't want your dream to be a reality check, of course.
Yeah, you have to taste the success, knowing the flavor of
Yeah,
failures.
yeah. Failure is a big part of making success, of course. Um, One question about scaling up. So how would you scale up the technology that you have in Singapore into more complex situations like rural Thailand or Cambodia or Jakarta, for example?
Yes, the traffic situation, by the way, in Singapore is totally different from Bali and
Yeah,
Jakarta. So we use different vehicles on the road. Here, I have four-wheelers on the road, most of them, but in Bali is most motorcycles, right?
yeah. And our biggest problem is, of course, dogs who are who also are part of traffic. They're always on the road. I think you always have to be careful.
I have so much respect. Autonomous technology is so matured and with so much trust from the consumers, they will not buy new cars anymore, and therefore ride sharing comes in. We still have the same amount of the road, but with much less fleet running around. That's the dream picture. And back to the question of how to scale up for AI robotics. For us, we have to identify the large fleet owners who has a burning challenge today to run their operations. So either they can't find drivers to do their essential business, or the cost saving of implementing autonomous technology to their existing fleet is 10 times cheaper than their current solution. So only these two, one of them clicks, we can scale up. Otherwise, it's gonna be per vehicle or two or three. It's never gonna be 100 where you see 200 vehicles in one geofenced premise.
Okay, thank you very much. The last question, how would you guarantee the security in the system if it does travel far? As I think I have to read the question like, what if you travel far and especially, of course, beyond controlled situations? Is there, for example, like a stop mechanism in within the software?
Yes, so I believe the assumption of this question is if the vehicle leaves the humans too far away, it's going to be dangerous, right? Yeah. Actually, that's not the case. But I do see, I mean, it's a very good question, because when you drive the vehicles for 5 kilometers versus 200 meters, of course, the time on the road is much more and the risk is much higher. So we thought about it, because essentially for level 4 and level 5, you are putting computers as the driver on board. It's not the humans anymore. That's why we built edge computing, and we built the redundancies of the system, meaning if one layer of the system fails, the machine is intelligent enough to put the vehicles into a safe stop. Because think about the size of the vehicle, and especially the speed of the vehicle. The consequences of the traffic accidents is actually much, much higher than the smaller robots, for example, document readers or a cleaning machine in your house. So thank you for that question.
All right. Then I would also like to thank you for your great presentation and for your answers on all these questions. I would also like to give the microphone back to Vika.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Johan, and thank you very much, Ms. Wuran, for the great presentation. And so we already checked there's no upcoming questions regarding this. So, and we already in the end of our agenda for today's webinar. So we would like to say thank you very much for our honorable speakers, for Ms. Buran and Mr. Sander van der Heijden and Ms. Marieke, the writer, the Wild, for speaking at the next wave of disruptions logistic. And thank you very much for all our attendees for attending the webinar and for all of your questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening. Have a good day. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great presentation.
Bye, thank you.
All the attendees. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So within the next few days, we will share a recording of this event in case you want to send it to your colleagues or friends who have not been able to join. And our next webinar will be in the first week of March next year. This webinar will be all about tokenized mobility. So thank you again all, and we wish you a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.